Witamy serdecznie
Dzień dobry.
na 9.
We are happy to welcome the 9th Polish Forum of Non-Governmental Initiatives. My name is Rafał Kowalski. I'm member of the board of the Polish Federation of NGOs and also work at the portal. And I'm Wiecławska and I work at the portal GA. So yesterday we had an international day. Today we have our Poland's day, and throughout the whole day we would have the transmission to plenary session and the selected two sessions from the two blocks, and because we have parallel sessions there, and we would end at 6 p.m. and in a moment we will invite you to the introduction of the first session, social organizations, the
Podczas przerw proszę nas nie opuszczać,
and during the breaks, please do not leave us. There will be a lot of going on here. We will invite to our small stand, TV stand, the panelists who will have finished their statements. We will ask them for reflections, for sharing their thoughts after these meetings. So please stay with us until 6 p.m. So once again, we'd like to invite you to the session. We will open the first session in 10 minutes time, and stay with us during the breaks. We will get back to you.
Dzień dobry.
Good morning. We are starting the 9th Polish Forum of Non-Governmental Initiatives. My name is Weronika Czyżewska-Waglowska, and I've been a co-creator of the event for the third time together with you. Yesterday we met at the Forum of Civic Society, and today, after 7 years, we are meeting here at OFIP. So I'm very happy to see so many of you, to hold discussions with you about what is important in our current activities and the activity of our organizations, and also about what is important for us. Let me welcome all people who are here in the conference, who represent the government, local government administration, and people from various other sectors, including business and science. And first and foremost, let me welcome people from NGOs, foundations, associations, networks, federations, and I'm happy to welcome all those.
Witam wszystkich, którzy są tutaj nad Wisłą.
Here, close to the Vistula River, that we can see just in front of us, and also those who are online with us, who will take part in the 4 sessions. We have some surprises during the breaks for you, so please stay with us after the end of the session here in this conference room. Now let me give the floor to Karolina Drescher-Smalec, who will welcome everyone and make a short introduction, and she is the chairperson of OFOP. So I'm happy to welcome everyone, although it's a hot day, but being together where are so many of us gives us a lot of energy. And now I'd like to say thanks to whom we are meeting today. Thanks to our everyday efforts and energy that we put into the activity in our local communities. This is our everyday sacrifice, hours of work dedicated by you to the needs that you see in your communities. And the partner and the strategic organization of the 10th of it is Polish Federation of NGOs, National Federation of Polish NGOs. And today, this year, we organized it with the Civil Society Development Foundation in Romania, and yesterday we organized with them. That was the first international foundation, Education for Democracy, and Stefan Bator Foundation. Congratulations. Without them, the event could not be held, and the Non-Governmental Forum of Non-Government Initiatives is an initiative which is funded from EFG funds and Norway funds and active civic platform and the fund in Romania. And the 9th of it is also financially supported by Polish American Freedom Foundation and Central Europe Civil Engagement Project, supported by our National Democratic Institute. These are very complicated names, but we are very grateful to these organizations for support, and also the founder of cooperation Witkas.pl. Let me mention our partners: National Freedom Institute, Central for the Civic Society Development, and the Foundation for the Development of Civic Society, that organized under OFIP, the 3rd Forum of Local Counseling. And 2 words about what was going on yesterday. There were 140 people from 15 countries. We were discussing challenges faced by social organizations at national levels, and we also discussed how we can express our needs in the form of some documents at the national level. And this year, because Poland would become in charge of presidency of the European presidency, we as European organizations will write a letter to the new European Commission and new Parliament, and the next 3 presidency, that is Danish and Cyprus, specifying how civic society should be supported at the European level, how we want it to look. Yesterday the letter was published. We would encourage you to sign the letter. All European organizations will sign this letter until the end of July, and then we will transfer it to the European levels. Thank you so much, and I wish you a fruitful day today. Thank you so much. As you can see here, that's the river flowing nearby, and when we were thinking about the river, we were thinking about this flow, life, and when we were looking at the last years, that was a great challenge, and we've had many different experiences, and we thought what really made us stick together. I mean, these were values: taking care of freedom, democracy, rights of each of every person, and the common good. Hence, this motive of the river is so close to us, because we want to give us all some kind of breath after difficult years. But we, of course, will discuss very important issues, systemic issues about funding, about how our organizations operate, but we would like also to take care about our wellness. And I do hope that when we were looking through the windows, we would see the window, and we would, let's say, get joy while looking at that space. And also we hope that OFIP will give us hope. And we are meeting because it's up to us to make the shape of our planet, Poland, Europe. I know these are very strong words, but this is like that. We are here and now, and it is up to us to define the future world and the future generations. So this is a challenge for us and a commitment, so that we should take care of the common good, and we are here in a conscious way, here and now. And one more word, we organized OFIP while taking care of the environment. You did not get any conference packages or gadgets. We encourage organizations to swap some goods that you made during your activities. You can give them the second life. You have just the badges that contain some seeds, and you can sow these seeds, not eat. And I hope that beautiful flowers will grow, and they would be a great joy and a memory from this meeting, hence this idea of the platform. I do hope that everyone who is with us is logged into the platform. It is not to be a double reality, because we are here and now, but the platform is to enable us to see who there is there out of 600 people whom we are going to meet, from which organizations they come, and you will see also organizations that would show you how they help other organizations. That would happen tomorrow during the fair. So we encourage you to make some interactions on the platform that would be used for some plenary sessions and some other sessions that we will arrange soon. During this session, we will have a great graphic recording prepared by Dorota Rostowska. You will see all these written statements of what is being said during plenary sessions. And now the last thing, hopefully we always together create an OFIP program in a participatory way. And during these 3 days, there will be about 45 sessions prepared by organizations from all across Poland. Thank you very much for your effort, for creating OFIP together with us, for the fact that we can be here together. And I heard that it is really difficult to choose the session that you'd like to attend, because all of them are interesting, and I have the problem with it too, but I'm sure it will be interesting, and we would all feel this kind of unity. All right, so let's get a breath. Let's have very good, joyful days, and let's take care of our wellness as well. I wish us all a good meeting. And now let me meet our people of the first session, Kuba Wygnański.
czyli prowadzącego.
So he is the moderator.
Ale zdradzę, że Kuba
And let me reveal that Kuba prepared the session with Zosia Komorowska, who
organizatorami
and
pierwszych bardzo dziękuję, że jesteście.
the organizations of the first OFIPS. So thank you for being with us, and over to you. So I'm so old that I said that we should have a lectern here. Well, but let me just explain what I mean. What is important is kind of a very fixed point. So to connect all these things would not be so easy. Well, I am kind of ironic about myself. I've been attending OFIPS many times, and each time I'm briefer. So now first quiz. Who attended the first OFIP in 1996? Please raise your hands. Oh, yeah. Because we are living for such a long time. But I'd like to say that this one is organized after 7 years, and there are many new people, therefore, and it's difficult for me to say different things because there are so many people who attended OFIPS earlier, so I don't want to repeat myself, and there are many new people and who would maybe like to listen to these things, so I must somehow move around. But I know us all to know where we are. It is not just one more NGO conference. No, it is a kind of Olympic Games with its all symbols of armistice, opening to everyone. I think we must be aware again that such rituals are necessary. You know that that I'm obsessed with figures, numbers, especially primary ones. So 7 is kind of magic number, and if 35 is divided by 7, we would say that after 7 years we organized this OFIP, and the first one was organized in 1996, and the other one was also near the Vistula River organized. But yeah, we want to tell various things to ourselves, that we are not the only people who are sort of crazy. We want to meet people who are of great importance for the sector. We must be more open to the public. Now, let's say, these kind of measures for convincing people have changed, but it used to be different. But anyhow, the 7 is an important number. I don't want to discuss why OFIP is organized after 7 years. And 7 has a meaning, so there have been new people now here, new organizations that were established not incidentally, because this movement is flowing, organic, is not something fixed. It has its own life, it finds places that it should affect. And many organizations like that will take part in the panel, and they brought new things, and maybe even they intimidated us with their courage, I would say. I had a slide with a map that was compiled in the 6th century. Please find these slides. Oh, hopefully I will manage without them. But yeah, we can see them. There are some rivers on these slides as well, and I can, well, click and show you more. So this is the map from the 7th century, where they tried to somehow organize the world. These are the so-called OT maps, T as in the shape of cross, and the ocean. That was the cartography then, the imagination of the world. The central point of the map, that's why it was very important among temple order, because Jerusalem was in the center, but at the top there was the paradise, Asia, Africa, divided by these rivers, Don, etc. Was like that. So the map was used really for many centuries, but what is important is this part in the middle that we organized, this kind of pin. And there are more sevens. There are 7 cardinal sins, 7 requests in prayer, virtues, and sins of Gandhi, 7 public consultations, etc. No, I'm kidding, but anyhow, there are many of them. There are also social virtues, 7 virtues like honesty, goodwill, being humble, wise, courageous, and self-control. We, I guess, should organize a FIP where we would consider these things, when we would think what they mean. And 7 years also, we can associate it, okay, 7 say years of plenty and of poverty. So we can interpret such things like that, but I wouldn't like interpret it like that we would have a kind of reversal now. I don't want to match politics here, but I don't want to pretend to be Daltonist. But something happened. If we go beyond the phase of just being superficial, a kind of magnet on the fridge, this is more important to get beyond just talking about something. And it's easy also to moralize, but it does not make people moral. The fact that I assess other people does not make me good. Of course, we have opinions about the others, but I guess some assessment should be present in it. I mean, that we should think about ourselves, what we were like at the trying times, but that pertains to a very small group of organizations. They had some temptations, or they had a reason to resist. But most of the NGO sector organizations is just like the Olympic Games. People just go there with such flags with the countries that we didn't even know that such countries exist. It is like that. The sector is in fact very various and rich, and it's not so that the years of plenty are gone and now it's not so good or reverse. But we should realize that some people and our organizations failed us, and we should build such organizations that we are so virtuous and that we would not have to change anything. But we should create such organizations that they should be more stable, effective. So when we arrange the world, and it should be more resistant, because we need very strong institutions. It is just ahead of us. It's not recovery, cleaning, but it is creating something new. Whether it is media, social media, mass media, or
Zapomnijcie o każdej, tak, porzućcie nadzieję.
And now that I'm talking too fast for interpreters, but please don't have any hopes. No way, I can't say, I will meet other people from Romania today. I will tell them about it later on. But it seems to me that these times were really strange, because 7 years ago we held talks at the university, but 7 years, it's also a lesson for everyone. And I also thought that after that we could act very quickly, would have a law, and somehow everything would be coped with. But it's difficult to create an alternative social society by giving it money or steroids, but it's not so easy. And it teaches us to be humble, and sometimes 2 generations are needed to have a kind of a genuine, organic civil society resulting, let's say, from the very backbone on it, not just the structure. All right, I've been talking for 7 minutes now, but let me go on. What is important is this flowing process, like the river. But let me get back to the ways that give us some maps. This is one of the classical maps, student maps, which says what the third sector is. We don't use the term anymore. We say social organization. Some people may take a picture of that, but this is a very thought over construction. We could contemplate it like these virtues of ours. I don't know if you can see that there are 4 sectors here, because I remember that at the second of it was held at Warsaw University of Technology. Professor Balcerowicz came and was thinking, well, how to describe the third word. It is like the third world. I mean, because most people didn't know what the first and second world is. Well, but we agreed that there was also a third world, but here on these axes we have 3: formal, informal, for-profit, non-profit, private and public. And the core of the sector is between these lines, but it goes further. There are organizations that go to the other territory. They're closer to the state, to the market, to local communities. So it's maybe not modern for us, and we don't know what to do with that, because the civic society is definitely something more than the third sector. They are individuals, it's capacity to cooperate. These are all these virtues that make people say, aha, that there is a civil society. People go to take part in election. This is everything which may be called a democratic effort, and which makes sense, and it doesn't fall apart. So I've been thinking, we are not for profit, and the organization have a mission, and some of you may not know it, because it is a simple translation from English, mission driven.
So churches play the same role, because it's supposed that as NGOs are non-profit organizations, and it's not about their ego though, so they must have a mission about a better world, better looking world. So it's very important to ask ourselves questions. Is that NGOs is not something that exists just like that. It's a part of our evolution, the system evolution, and some of them needs to disappear and the new ones need to be created. I may have a good organization, but it also may be a source of problems. So what organizations are about, really? There's a short list. I don't know if there are even 7 items on those. Why do we have those organizations? Why they are there? So what's important here is that on the one hand, we have things that we tend to forget. They respond to people's passions, hobbies, dreams. Let's do something together and so on. This is maybe the most important thing, the most important driver of this organization, because thanks to that, for example, some motorcycle fans would gather, people who collect stamps would gather within such an organization. But what is important is that you create a new social tissue. Some people would say that maybe it's some kind of plankton, but plankton, it's nothing wrong. If people want to spend time together, if they don't want to, anything else will be synthetic, not true. The second thing is that they have an informative and educational value. So, for example, also training is important, because we would we're very afraid of that, yes, of this training formative value. So there may be a lot of traps related to organizations, because are there really school of democracy? Yes, there should be, because they should shape some skills that are not taught at schools, in fact. We may ask ourselves the following question: do we really prove that democracy is well functioning? Can we prove that it's well functioning? And in these times, what is really important is this formative element, training-related element, transcendence, which is really important. So there is well-being and good. Those are two different words. When talking about values for our planet, let's check what values lack. For example, security, safety, and we need to be accustomed to that, and this is ahead of us. And the majority of organizations are there because they provide some services. Maybe they provide services for the state or on behalf of the state, because the state wouldn't provide them. The third sector is therefore because the state logic is not there, it's not enough. But it wouldn't be wise to say that state is not needed. But another function is also to be a watchdog, to look on what our governments are doing, our authorities are doing. So one of our main roles, which is not fully accepted by governments, is that we want information. We want to make people responsible, the governments to make the governments responsible for their actions, have competent people and wise people. Not all the organizations do it, of course, but we need to have part of those organizations that would be able to do it. But let me finish now. Something really important is that we've got a lot of functions to fulfill, and we need to think which of them is the most important one. It's like a system, an attempt at performing all that and having all those functions. It would be really not a success. So I really don't care who voted for whom. I'm a conservative, liberal socialist. You will find this kind of graph by Mr. Kołakowski, and I think that this kind of movement, this social, liberal, conservative movement, will gain importance. It's been neglected because we all are fighting for our rights. So inevitably we will get back to a model where there is another side to this equation, which means that there are also obligations to be fulfilled. So I think that we lack this link. So we need this Republican thinking, not as Trump does it, but we need to fight for things which are important for us. And so in this meaning, so the next question to be asked, what is the most important thing for us, and what kind of price are we ready to pay for that? This is something that will be a very important and hard question for us, because countries are getting more military like, and it was like 100 years ago when the Weimar Republic would cease to exist. So will this be our strength or not? So we are proud of it. We should be proud of it, and the civic society has proved that it needs to exist. 7 years ago, who would have thought that there will be a pandemic, that there will be a Russian aggression, and we've managed to cope with all that. For example, in Rzeszów, 35% of our population lives now there, and what country is that where 10% of Polish people received Ukrainian refugees. So it's a great country. So we've managed to cope with all that, and we need to be proud of that. We replaced the authorities, and we know how to do it. So we need to learn from that, learn from this eruption of solidarity, something very Polish, of courage and so on, and build a new structure based on that, because we are approaching some new events in this new world. 1 minute left only for me, so no slides, but I just like to briefly stress that it's good that we have not lost all that. This golden horn, it's good that we haven't lost it. It was part of Polish history. So maybe we shouldn't stop now. And we are now approaching something very hard and difficult. We have new instruments because we have a better government that understands our civil society better. We have a new ministry for social, for civil society. So we have great expectations, and maybe they can be met. But this small window will be small. So. Up to now, what is important is to win elections, and what is ahead of us is to build new relations. We know that Polish people are not good at coping with victories as such. So let's be wise and let's get ready for some times that I would say that we shouldn't be, well, hysterical, but we are dealing with some problems which are really related to the end of times, and there is a very difficult challenge of populism. For politicians, it's important to tell people what they would like to hear and not what they should hear. There is another threat related, namely to war, and there is huge polarization of our society. So all this is something new, and I do believe that we all who are present here at this meeting will be able to cope with that. We will not hide from those problems. So I can see that, and thank you very much. I do hope that we will be able to cope with it. Yes, a ball. I was supposed to show this circle or a ball. No, not really. Thank you for your attention. It's written. Yes. No. Only this. It looks like a magical sign. It was shown 7 years ago. A graph, a map, the effort. Collective effort of we are here for the third sector, so we should see this map again, look at it, and it's still up to date, as we can see. And is it a circle, a ball? What is it really? It's a circle, and we have freedom in the middle. So let's start our panel now, a discussion. Thank you very much. I would like to invite, among others, Zosia Komorowska, who will be taking part in this panel. You will be sitting there, I'll be sitting here. I know Zosia very well because we've been working with OFIP for years now. Yes, so I have the pleasure of facilitating this debate together with Kuba, and we have great panelists who accepted our invitations. Ewa Kulik, you may know her. And I don't know what to tell her. She has been part of the democratic opposition, and she's been also recently part of the civic opposition and the head of the Batory Foundation for years, translator and so on. Maciej Keryk, who is a historian, a sociologist, She was born not in Poland, but she has chosen Poland, and she lives here, and she is the head of Nasz Wybór, Our Choice Foundation. And after the escalation of the war, it became a center for support for the Ukrainian refugees. And Kinga Łoziska has also accepted our invitation. She's an ethnologist, and Kinga, you may know her. She used to work in the business sector, and you may know also that she organized some manifestations, and she used to be the head of the Committee of the Defense of Democracy, and she observed elections. And the last panelist, Jakub Kocjan, a pro-democratic activist, and he works at Akcja Demokracja. He started as a volunteer, and now he is responsible for advocacy campaigns around such subjects and themes as climate protection, but also other political themes. Let me give you the mic. Yes. The idea for this discussion is not really sophisticated. What is behind is not really sophisticated. It's an idea. But what we would like to discuss, can you show us this circle? Yes, the circle on the slide. So the idea is to discuss values and how they are implemented, because Kuba said that we've managed to do a lot recently, and that it was based on values and their practical implementation. So the circle was created at the recent OFIP meeting, and when we were thinking about important values, we wanted to show them this way, in this circle. The closer to the center, the more important the values were. But the question is how you see it from those 7 years time perspective. What values are the most important now for you, and whether we can really, for example, give examples of the implementation of such values. Yes, can you start? Yes, I can. I would say that I remember when we be preparing this office, it was after the new government came into power, and we were thinking about new values. And what's not surprising is that for me, the most important value at that time was freedom, of course, but what was important at that time was solidarity. Solidarity and two other values, responsibility, involvement, and being sensitive to someone's needs. So we've coped with implementing those values, and those 7 years have shown that we were full of solidarity in our groups and organizations, and within our civil society organizations. We managed to work together, and throughout those years we created informal and formal coalitions, had joint resources, and managed to use them to identify ourselves with the most in need. And the COVID pandemic was a good example, and also the full aggression of Russia and Ukraine, but before also solidarity with our activists in Belarus, and solidarity with other organizations that would be attacked. I say that what lacks is a description of our activities, because it was really unbelievable what we have done. Someone would say that we have survived. Survival is very important, but it's not a value. It's important not only to survive, because we've done a lot at all possible levels. First of all, we fought with the evil, with all the attacks on democracy and the rule of law. But it was not about resisting on our side. We had many ideas what to do despite this reality, how to put a foot in the door. And of course we started fighting for the Constitutional Tribunal in Poland. There were colleagues of mine who protested there when the tribunal and those judges were elected, chosen. Those protests were spontaneous. I don't know if you know, but getting back to the previous OFIP, where I also opened the first panel, and it was there was Mr. Gliński, the former Minister of Culture there, and there was discussion between me and him about civil society. And he said that, yes, when peace comes to power, whenever peace comes to power, civil society becomes more active. And I said, yes, somehow it is like this. We don't have spontaneous protests. This is what he said, but it's not true, because we had those protests, and we would protest all the time for the court, for the tribunal. Then we started protesting in order to defend women's rights and so on. So apart from those protests in the streets, which were very important because they were important for those who did not protest, that to show that we wouldn't agree with what the government would do. So this is this positivist approach.
So the first protest of COD, when it was being established, the Constitutional Code, was on the initiative of civil society organizations. That was OFOP that gave the possibility of giving some big microphone, etc., so that the first piece of equipment was from OFOP to make it heard. So we combined various resources, and of course this institutionalized civil society helped new, let's say, civil society members who organized a protest. So solidarity is the most important value, in a sense more important than freedom. So we were not to repeat things, but I guess I will repeat some things, but from a different perspective. So I come from Ukraine. I run the Ukrainian organization, which is called Ukrainian Home. Maybe more people heard about it. So for me, freedom is important. For me personally, there is fight for freedom in Ukraine. Yesterday, I attended the meeting of organizations from Ukraine, and there was a question asked to them what they identify being Ukrainian with, and they say that it is freedom, being free. So it is important. But this is what motivates people, motivates especially to fight and to being active. So it's what I've been thinking now in the context of migration organizations and those that support migrants. What is important here is solidarity, the first word that comes to mind. So solidarity was so important, but when Peace Party came to power, we lost some funds, but now, of course, the funding is provided from international organizations, but not from the state. But when we had no access to EU funds in 2016. 2016 meant that some of the organizations ceased to exist. Several organizations managed to survive because we created partnerships like Migration Consortium, comprising several organizations taking care of organizations and refugees. And we, as Margaret organization, survived. We found funding to continue our activities to help people in need, and I'd like to thank the Batory Foundation for their help, for being with us in all these difficult situations, and all the time during the COVID and later on during the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. We always had support from you. And I must also repeat that for us what was important were all this full invasion. Well, all of you, I mean, I'm sure that you who are sitting here were involved in helping Ukrainians who had to flee war. And I'm sure that your organizations, many organizations in Poland, regardless of whether they dealt with the climate or pavements, roads, etc., they transformed their activity into helping people who are fleeing the war. And what was also important for us in terms of operations was this kind of intersectoral aid. So business was so open, it helped our organizations help, and they helped us do things that we are unable to do because we were not so good in management. We did not study MBA management. And so we are just learning that, but they do have such skills because they graduated from Warsaw School of Economics, etc. Okay, I'm supposed to end. All right, so I'm coming to an end. So they helped our organizations and to become a very big organization, from a small one comprising 18 people to a big one comprising 180 people. So they shared with us their competences, and they asked us, for example, whether you have money for kind of your everyday activities. Well, we didn't. So they suggested that they would give us some subsidy to be used to help people. That was important for us. It was a kind of new thing for us, and solidarity was also important for us. And I'd like to say that we also gave something to others. And well, directors from departments came, and I was making coffee for them, and they were surprised because I am the president of the organization, is making coffee. And yes, of course, but they also saw people who were really very much engaged, who had a mission, who were competent, who were really doing their best, and they appreciated us too. So they came out, all these sort of business people, from their bubble. So let me emphasize that solidarity is so important for us. And even if now, well, we have a bit less support, I know there are different sort of views, but I always know to whom ask for help, and I always get it. Thank you. I represent a young organization that was set up when the Peace Party came to power, but not because they came to power, because they started to destroy the rule of law. And we would like to thank you for this kind of microphone from the big tube that you gave us. So we started defending democracy and rule of law. That was the most important thing for us. Many people protested in the streets in order to defend the Constitutional Court, the Supreme Court, courts of law. We had a kind of protest near the Parliament. We were protesting also in the Parliament the same. There were some kind of marches, and we were defending courts. What was important was this march of 1,000 ropes. So the Committee for democracy defense and the members who became the lay judges of the Supreme Court. So yes, we all managed, but at the same time, very quickly, the values that we built was participation and engagement. We created a great network of people engaged, and before that, they were quite silent. They did their job, like me. So this is now the network, and what is also important is this movement of controlling elections, which got together 27,000 people who decided that it was important to observe the election. So participation is the second important value for the Democracy Defense Committee. For me, all these values are important, but let's say for me personally, diversity is really the most important. I mean, ethnic, cultural diversity, any type of diversity. So we still have a great deal to do to protect it, to see a value in it, and diversity among us. This is really a great value. And Cuba, what is important for you? Of course, freedom in the middle is a very important value symbolically, and all the other values come from it. But let me focus in particular on the two of us. When we think about the last 7 years and the development, say, of us as the civic societies, cooperation and responsibility. So cooperation, I think, is our common experience. It is always a challenge when we as various organizations cooperate. I mean, because we had different individuals, great personalities, and very often there are many differences between us. But for many years, we've been really initiating such cooperation, and very often there are not obvious alliances. I know when we were fighting against the second Charnex Lex, it turned out that for the effectiveness of the campaign, which was one of the most important campaigns, we needed very unobvious alliances with Catholic organizations, which also are involved in education, and we are very different from them. And as for the education system in the future, we will have many disputes with them later on. But at this critical moment, we saw our common values and common threats, and at this very strange cross-section, we were able to build a strange coalition many times, because this Charnex Lex really was fought against many times. And before that, it had been impossible because there were differences in views, roles, and experiences. There were also NGOs who started their activity at the very transformation period a long time ago, even earlier, and there were new ones that many of them were being set up. That was really beautiful. I mean, that cooperation was beautiful, although it was not so easy, and I wouldn't say it wasn't. So that was a challenge here. I mean, cooperation was a challenge, and I think it is one of the most beautiful stories throughout the last years, that despite the differences between our characters, etc., we learned how to cooperate. And I must add, we lived in the country which was very close to getting into the abyss of authoritarian regime. Of course, at the moment of the greatest threat, we got mobilized. And you see this great success of the 15th October, because of the turnout. The election was the fruit of our efforts throughout many years, and these were very tedious also tasks as well, very often not seen. But later on it turned out that the various networks of cooperation that were set up bore fruit. That is the great change. And now the challenge is to maintain this change, this mobilization right now and later. And also, I think what is important is to get back to those rules, to remember that politicians are our partners, but they are not our, let's say, colleagues from this kind of current cooperation. So we are maturing now to think that politics is not just a dirty thing, but this is a game that we want to play and we can play, but we would also impose some limits, and we would say that we are, let's say, for example, a watchdog organization, and the other one would be in alliance for some issues, and this responsibility would be important, where we would also be supervising those that really come from NGOs. And it's great that we don't treat it as a kind of treason on their part, but we would be closely watching them. Thank you so much. Great, that's great. When I've been listening to you, I think that, well, these values intermingle, one derives from the other, and then they combine, but these are the times of persistence and hope, and because without hope we would not have persistence, and maybe sometimes various things that are unseen, and all these activities like those ones undertaken by Don Quixote are so important. So because of the various crises and challenges that appeared, and we were not prepared, and that was a moment of kind of a trial for us, and they can give us courage also for the future. Well, thank you so much. We said at which times we managed to cope, and which of these values were really followed by us as people connected with these organizations without, let's say, polishing anything. But now I'd like to ask you where we didn't manage to achieve good things and when we had so many difficulties. What I mean is they just didn't manage to cope, but I think we can also speak for ourselves that we did not manage to achieve something, because then you are responsible. So tell me, well, you had greater, let's say, expectations compared to what you actually achieved. I may start. Let me refer to what Kuba said, because there was a period that cooperation was unsuccessful. It was quite difficult, especially among us, maybe not us, but between our organizations, many groups that were set up. But yes, the various groups were set up of activists in the streets. There was a lot of rivalry, and ego of leaders was so important. There was rivalry between ourselves. There were kind of great arguments about the size of logo of our common banner. And from the closest allies, I heard that I was worse than people from the Peace Party. It was an unpleasant situation. Nevertheless, we overcame it. We started to cooperate. We saw that there is a great value in our diversity. Some made complaints, some have to think for a long time, and some just tie themselves to various rails. But one thing which is not so good for us is the building a narrative in the spirit of dialogue is respect for our, say, political opponents, that is, let's say, peace electorate. I know it's really very, very difficult, so, and I know that there are some views that I would not really like to take into account in the discussions, but we must, let's say, have a narrative, and that we should not talk about, let's say, stupid, manipulated citizens, bought citizens. We should have respect for them. We must also know that during talks with them we must learn something new. I know it was really extremely difficult, especially when there are so many emotions. And I wasn't really experiencing such great situations. People were spitting on me in the street, but we must go through it. Otherwise, it will have a destroying effect, and it will give us no effect. Well, I also wrote that in this circle we had some values which are important for everyone, but because of that great polarization and growing hostility, we must really depend to say that, well, when we talk about the dignity of each human being, that we really had that for respect for all people, or just for people like us. And similar the case with diversity, there are groups that are subject of hate and that they live in kind of fortress, and they have a great trouble being tolerant. So tolerance, diversity, this is something what we want for us, and maybe we don't want it for others. It's hard, difficult to understand after the cancel culture comes into play here. So the canceling people who think differently is becoming more and more popular, even among minority groups. And I understand the psychology of it. Well, it does exist. And throughout these difficult times, we had difficulty with being open. We could not reveal everything, so that not to pose a threat to some people or organizations. And we, I guess, had also a problem with participation and self-governance, and I'm afraid that we will still have such a problem. When I think about local governments also, I think, I mean, self-governance means local governments and also our self-governments and participation of our social organizations, whether we as CSO have a participatory approach to various things. So yes, so we still have many things to do. But nobody said that democracy, rule of law, human rights are important for you. But these are various from different orders. Yes, they are important. We fought for them, but in my first statement, I focused on the values that were important for us, and in a way, we managed to cherish them.
I think that everything has already been said. Yes, I was thinking to talk about what should be improved and the lack of tolerance, of course. 7 years ago, maybe we had a different approach, but now tolerance for me, who represent a minority, that tolerance is that you will tolerate you as long as you know where your place is. An example, I was late for a train to Rzeszów at the central station, and I wanted to ask people about it, and no one would give me any information, and then I wrote that I don't like Polish railways, and maybe and then I got a lot of hate reactions. How dare you criticize the Polish railways and so on? In Ukraine it's worse, so know your place. But I'm a customer and I bought a ticket and I have the right to criticize. But there is this national pride on the side of those who criticize. You are a migrant, they say, do not criticize, know your place. So even though I have the right to criticize, but this tolerance is limited. We will tolerate you as long as you don't stand out. So what is important here and needs to be stressed is this participation, participating in different circles. It's not about being in a ball, like a migration group, and that's all. And that's good that I'm in this panel and not in a panel dedicated to migrants, yes, that they wouldn't put me in this limited circle. So, for example, about self-governments, what was really painful for me, there is this minister for social policy, and within this ministry there is a council for women on the job market, and there is no representative of migrants in this council, whereas we play an important role in on the job market. There is a representative of the employers' organization, but there is no representative from the migrants' organization. We should be represented everywhere. We are not only migrants, we are women, disabled, businessmen. We have different roles, so it's important to ensure this participation. For me, it's key for the future. Yes, equal rights. When talking about it, and I really appreciate such a value which was already mentioned, and this is something that lacks, is solidarity. Solidarity, I have a lot of memories from those years in the past where there was this teachers' strike at schools, which was a failure because of lack of solidarity. I'm not talking only about the sector, the education sector, but the whole society, because this strike impacted everyone. Well, it turned out that there were fears because there will be no exams, that people didn't know what to do with their children because there were strikes. So there was this lack of solidarity, and before that there was this reform of education. Our system was chaotically reformed, so colleges were suppressed. So even before there is not enough solidarity, but I'm thinking also in a broader perspective, going beyond this Warsaw-centric perspective, this regional solidarity. This is what lacks when discussing our own initiatives. This is the solidarity with such unobvious groups. There are new themes, for example, related to that. Young men, for example, the pandemic of being alone, of loneliness. So this is also a sphere where NGOs should act, for example, as regards young men who felt lonely. We should maybe care for them, although it may seem something new, surprising, but more and more research has shown that there are such problems with young men. So we need to think about this solidarity internally and externally. For example, also the unionization of some organization. This is also solidarity. Some NGOs are also workplaces where under a mission which is performed, some limits are crossed and people are not well treated. So building workers' solidarity is important. Even though it's a third sector, it's also a workplace for some people. So this change needs to take place, according to me. It's good to present us this perspective because organizations as workplaces, yes, so we will be discussing also this aspect during our further panels. So the third question, as we don't have much time now, but another question. This circle was created 7 years ago, and it was said that maybe some words are outdated. But when you're looking at Poland and our sector today, what would you add to this circle, if anything? Let me intervene now. And Cuba was saying that what was important is security. Well, this is a great value and a great need that needs to be appreciated. And it's not about militarizing our society in the name of security. There is this basic risk related to that because of security we will lose our rights, basic rights. But let's take a broader look at security. Some small examples have shown that security has a great impact as a value on our society. It's perceived in a specific way, but people in the name of security are able to do cruel things, for example, at the Polish-Belarus border or elsewhere. So I think this is a problem that needs to be dealt with, which means that we are in a society where a lot of people don't have this feeling of security. And I'm not talking about the threat of an invasion or war. What lacks here is the value which is called truth, understood broadly as namely access to good information, to have a fact-based debate. So this is related to truth in all our aspects of life, and also openness to changes. These changes are there, so let's be ready for those changes and open. I must admit that I was thinking more about replacing some values. There is this dignity of human beings is an important value, but it's written in small characters, whereas I think it should be written in bold characters, because dignity is of great importance to each and every citizen. It's there, of course, but also human rights should gain more importance in the context of security, because we are thinking more about the militarization of our society and security, whereas human rights should be respected. It should be written in bold, it should be practiced, it should be present in our lives. It is about how we treat people, namely on the Polish-Belarus border. So it's important to stress it. To stress, of course, it was not among our first values, but it needs to be stressed. It requires a lot of effort from each and every one of us. I have a couple of such values in those difficult times. It's responsibility that is gaining importance, in being responsible not only for Poland but also for Europe and for the whole world, for future generations, so that we are brave enough. This is this courage. This is what it's all about, of fighting against some feeling of insecurity, of fear against some external threats, against war, and not showing us examples. Yes, they want to threaten us with the war and not to show examples. So hope is a great value. Giving people hope, this is a good perspective. Not only threaten, but find a neutral language in order to neutralize all the fears that we have inside of us, and maybe not to calm people down, but there's no good word for that. It's preparedness. It's being prepared, ready, which is maybe not a value, but rather a task. Being prepared, being ready, empathy, and it's not tolerance, but empathy, and being empathetic towards the ones that we do not fully understand, building communities, belonging to a community, regardless of differences, and determination, resilience, patience, building resilience. Those are more tasks, so responsibility, that would be the most important value. Civil responsibility, it's a great challenge, and we would be on the same side because we would all together fight for democracy, but we need to continue fighting for democracy and be against, openly against maybe the ones who were with us and now they are in power. 30 seconds left only, yes? Only some time left for Veronika. So in 30 seconds, let's say that I will read you a list of main virtues. So this is a very old list. Apart from faith, there is also love, hope, caritas, and also it's not artificial intelligence, it's wisdom, and so it's something, it's prudence, caution, thoughtfulness, and this is something, and preparedness. It's also something which is well reflected, like fortitude in Latin, yes? And so this is when we feel something, forte, we feel strong. So let's think about those values. And another approach to justice. Once I asked Henryk Gwójec, a member of the opposition, about solidarity, what it's all about, and he replied that solidarity was not a movement of 10 million of people, but during the first days of strikes, the fact that those protesting people did not feel alone. So Kuba also talked about it, that we know what is tolerance about, but tolerance is a kind of indifference. So this is about taking care of the others, is about understanding security, which is not fulfilled through just surviving or defending or arming our soldiers, but it's about having this sense of community, especially at local level. What does it mean to be safe and secure? It doesn't mean to run away, but to be with the others and to identify who they are. So identify security, and the source of that is solidarity as a promise that you will not be alone. This is the Polish key to solidarity. This is what we should be looking for. We are running out of time, but I think it was worth it. Just one last word. You may have heard about this musical, 1989. Two words which are important there. The crowd will break through, and the second thing that we will not leave our people. So this is what is empathy and solidarity about. It's not really easy to find a link and a balance between those two values. It's not easy, but let's remember that those values are important. We don't leave our people behind, yes? We don't leave people behind. Thank you very much. Thank you for those sessions. What is ahead of us? Within this OFIP opening, we have a social campaign. We are here and now, together with its functioning campaign, with other our partners and associations who are with us at all the OFIP meetings. And there will be a premiere of our spot.
Opowiem wam
That's all.
bajkę. Gotowi? Osoba działająca w organizacji społecznej,
Let me tell you a tale. The person which is an activist, it's an angel which is here to
nie
help.
odczuwa zmęczenia.
He or she wouldn't eat, wouldn't sleep, wouldn't
czego
be
nie
tired.
poświęca, bo przecież
Will not
napędza go
sacrifice
powołanie.
anything because it's vocation.
Ale życie to
Yes,
jest
it's
bajka.
vocation, but
Działanie
life is
to
not
wspólny
a tale.
wysiłek tysięcy
Acting
zaangażowanych osób.
it's a common effort of thousands of people. It's a
Znamy się na
profession,
tym,
it's
co
a
robimy.
passion,
Troskę
it's
mamy.
making our
Jesteśmy
dreams
wszędzie
come
tam,
true.
gdzie
It's
potrzebne
taking
zmiany.
care of the
Działamy,
others,
bo
being
zależy nam na
everywhere
bezpiecznej
where changes
planecie,
are needed.
na
We are
zdrowiu
acting
i
because we
godnym
care
życiu.
for a safe
Wspólnoty,
planet,
rzetelnej
for
integracji.
health,
oraz prawa.
for a good life, for
Nie ma nas dawno
decent job and so
za
on.
górami, za lasami.
Jesteśmy obok Ciebie.
It's not a tale.
Jesteśmy
We are
tu i
here
teraz.
and now. We are here and now, close to you.
To działa. Wejdź na stronę.
It's working.
To działa. Jak widać,
It's working. As you can see, it was a good summary of our today's first panel. So those are the actors featured in this spot. The campaign was created by Berry Collective Group. The campaign has been just launched. Now we'll have a coffee break and we will get connected with NGOPL studio for those who are watching us online, and we will be back at our plenary session at 1 o'clock.
Dzień dobry. Jeszcze raz Magda Dobranowska-Wictel z portalu organizacji pozarządowych. Jesteśmy po pierwszym panelu podczas Ogólnopolskiego Forum Organizacji Pozarządowych. Dołącza do nas
Who will be joining us? Now we will be having Weronika Czyżewska-Waglowska to talk about briefly about what happened during the first panel and welcome the people who are watching us online. Hello everyone. I want you to know that we see you, although you may think that we don't see you. We started with our office talking about values, what we shouldn't forget about, and maybe Kuba will also tell something. And we are here, a lot of people are here, and it's a pity you're not with us, but I do hope that you will feel
Dzięki. Jednym z uczestników i osobą, która otwierała.
So the person who opened OFIP was someone you may know very well, Kuba Wygnański. The first panel was namely dedicated to value, to a map of value which was created at the last OFIP, which took place 7 years ago, and we discussed those values, whether they were still important to us, and which of those values were still a challenge, and what lacks in this map. Kuba, the floor is yours.
So, Kuba, please tell us what of these values is the most important. I know there are a lot of them, so please choose some. I think it's interesting also to know which values are missing for you and what was needed now. All right, so what is important here, and I guess it was discussed, that we got back to something that was reported 7 years ago. But here, we are here close to the river, Vistula River, but 7 years ago we were a bit further, closer to the university on the hill. But of course we were discussing all this flowing process and the ball running, and we were discussing whether these things were important in difficult times, and the central value was crucial, that is freedom. It was in the middle, like from in Braveheart movement, freedom and liberty. There are two different things, but as the singer says, I love and understand freedom and I can't give it up. So it's deep enough, but we had a kind of very in-depth discussion. It's so really beyond any discussion. There are many things like that is not only for me. And the second thing was that we somehow defended it, and we can have a dispute where to what extent it was thanks to CSOs, but indeed we did deliver on that, and we frankly talked how we learned being humble and not to act as soloists, as single people, but we managed to do so. And finally people said, and I dedicate to politicians, that somehow there was an attempt at going beyond themselves, that their egoisms, etc. And we were successful. And it's not only politics success, because civil society, we understand it abroad, but during the pandemic we somehow managed to cope. So we, Poles, can act in difficult times. So yeah, the pandemic, the war, and many other things show that the society is active and copes well. But what we also think, what is ahead of us, we know that it's difficult, because now there's a tendency to somehow get back to our own views, to cut off. But we must be wiser. We must build wiser institutions, and we must not look for revenge. We must look for agreement, and we care about community. That was deeply moving. Was the solidarity was in the past the most important, and now it is also the most important. And it is solidarity which means care for everyone, and not for just our people. And what is also important is the category of safety, security, and security. That would be great importance. So a month ago we saw a premiere of The Spot and our campaign, which is great appreciation for people acting in the sector, taking care of all these values that Kuba has just mentioned, who really stand up for them, defend them. They have in their hearts, in their organizations. And so this is a great appreciation for everyone, that we are here and now, and we act. And now we'll have another session. So I've been looking at the map and thinking which value is still important for me. It's a dialogue. And I think the next panel will be an example of that. We would have guests, politicians, and we encourage you to watch transmission from OFIP and more sessions. Well, we treat it as data, because I'm old, but I remember how it all started. But when I look at an NGOPL and clone these organizations, and this long trajectory of 35 years, we see very important kind of fixed points, because I know what's going on in other countries in Europe. So there are some kind of projects when we were together, and it was really important. And I'd like to thank you, because we were anchored with a kind of very diverse world, and this is great that we have a place for debate. It's really it's worth great respect. So thank you so much. Thank you very much. I will also convey my thanks to my colleagues. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Dzień dobry, drugi raz.
So, good afternoon once again. We are opening the second plenary session. So you've just heard the intro signal. That is the signal that really shows us that we are starting the session. So please take your seats, find your place, and keep your mobile phones in a silent mode. So before I ask the moderators to start the session, let me remind you of the platform to which every participant has access. You will find the agenda of the event, the markings of conference rooms where there are parallel sessions held, and after this session we will have lunch, and after lunch several parallel sessions in several conference rooms, and you will find information where which session is held. So you can also book some people for discussion. We have a meeting room. You must just mark the room if you need a meeting to talk about, for example, future cooperation with someone, so it is possible. We have also kind of relax room for people who need silence. There are many of us today, so there is a lot of noise, etc. So if people need some silence, please go there. You will find it. In the corridor, there are some signs showing where it is. And one more important piece of information: after this session, we'll take a group photo. That would be a great challenge, but we should do it because this is really something great, and we did it before in the previous OFIBs, and we are always very happy to look at the pictures. So please get mobilized. And after the session, the organizers will show where we should go to the event. So now Karolina Reszesmanec and Edwin Bendyk, who would moderate the plenary session now. So please be quiet. Thank you for understanding. So Eva Kulik asked you for silence, so please be really silent. So once again, welcome at the second plenary session. This is the session at which we will discuss a very important topic, which for us as NGOs operating on an everyday basis, are performing our tasks, face many challenges also related to the relations with the authorities and how cooperation with the authorities looks and what conclusions we draw, which topics we deal with together. So this is the topic of our plenary session, and myself and Edwin Bendyk from Bathurst Foundation will be moderation. So it's very important to emphasize that these are relations with the power, not the government, including the government, but the power system in Poland. The political power is very complex. It comprises many elements, and we invited representatives of all these different parts. So please join us on stage. Marek Krawczyk, Undersecretary of State in the Chancellor of Prime Minister, who deals with civic society. So the Minister, please join us on stage. And we'd like to invite Professor Marek Rymsza, Advisor to the President, Chair of the Council for Civil Society of the National Development Council. Professor, please join us. And we will also have Anita Kucharska-Dziedzic, who is a Member of Parliament of New Left, who is Chair of the Parliamentary Team on NGOs and Civic Society. So we will also have a representative of the legislative power. So now we will start our work, but we still have 2 free seats. One is for Madam Kucharska-Dziedzic, but in a moment we will invite people from social organizations to take these places, and they will discuss what are their ideas about relations with the power, and what are specific proposals to improve them. So these chairs are just empty for a while, and now we are starting our work. So the Polish Federation of NGOs, together with organizations associated in it and experts, have been dealing with relations between social organizations, that is the civic sector, and the public sector, this public power. Thanks to that work, they hammered out various let's say, requests, and Karolina, maybe you would present this history. I will briefly discuss many years of activities which we as the National Federation of Polish NGOs, as people also cooperating with the Federation, have been doing for many years now. And we started before Poland's accession to the EU and after Poland's accession to the EU. And well, that is related to how these CSOs participated in setting up these organization funds and monitoring funds. In 2007-2013, the Federation was running the Secretariat of the Thematic Network for Partnerships. So we even then were very vocal about the fact that funds must be implemented while respecting the partnership rule. The network that met many times all across Poland was pursuing that objective, and it was not only NGOs who were part of that, but also those who were creating these funds, implementing funds, that is all public institutions. Later on, an important topic which was run by our federation was the issue of cooperation. Then, in the framework of our activities in 2015, we cooperated with several ministries to work out cooperation programs with NGOs, be it annual or multi-annual ones. I know that in some of the ministries these programs are still being run, and another issue which was important was how to simplify our activities. That was the time there was work being done on the law on associations. That was a very difficult stage because we were discussing how to amend the law, but we managed to do it. And then President Duda, who just came to power, signed it, and then we had a big process of thinking how we as NGO sector want to develop and how we see our future, which path we should follow. And we called it as the document Strategic Roadmap for the Development of NGO, which in 2013 and 14 was almost finalized, but it was being created in all regions, in all voivodeships. I come from Lubelski, and I see many people from other regions in Poland, and now that we all met locally, we discussed the needs, and the drawing which was shown earlier by Kuba, these various colors, quite complicated lines, etc., that was the summary in one graphic design of how such strategic roadmap should look. And we had even idea what should we do as social organizations, and the document was finalized, but unfortunately after the 2013-14 that somehow got into the political space in which NGOs were unable to implement that map. Maybe now we will get back to it. And recently, that is in autumn, just before the national elections in Poland, we as organizations are working on various themes, starting from rule of law, education, rights of people with disabilities, civic space. We created 17 drafts of laws or some solutions that were called a document we have an idea for Poland. That was the title of the document, and we presented it to all democratic political parties, to all that were interested in it. So it turned out that democratic parties were interested in it. They wanted to see what NGOs prepared. And last autumn, we signed a declaration of cooperation for support and development of civic society. That was the title of it. And three, the biggest democratic is that is Civic Coalition, Third Way and New Left signed it, and they committed themselves to supporting the needs of the civic society. And the declaration contained three big areas, which could be summed up like dialogue, civic dialogue, partnership, and relationship of being in a dialogue, listening to each other, taking into account each other's positions, law, so all the things which enable NGOs in Poland to act well and effectively. That is, the law would enable them to do that. And funding, how to transparently finance social organizations, not only to finance activities under projects, but to how to financially support the development of the civic society sector. And there is a difference here, but I would not dwell on it. So it's been 20 years now, and our federation have been active throughout these years, and all the events took place in that period. And we as organizations see the need. So we wanted also to show you the declaration you see on the slide, the declaration that I've mentioned, and here the convention in September, when big organizations dealing with all areas that our state deals with are being tackled, and these ideas were written down on paper, and there are some items here. I will not read them, but these are the commitments that the groups undertook while signing the declaration. And we would like now to request to invite those who are working on the content of some arrangements here. So please come. So there are many pillars: dialogue, good law, and funding. Let's start with the dialogue with the power, but also internal dialogue. So now I'd like to ask Piotr Frączak from the Federation and Ewa Kramiak from the Office of Social Initiatives, so from kind of two different organizations, and we are still waiting for the lady member of the Polish Parliament. So now, all right, let's discuss this pillar. So we are discussing dialogue with the public authorities. So thank you so much. What I am to present are, let's say, problems or challenges that organizations and the authorities face. I mean, authorities mainly at the central level during the civic dialogue. And the civic dialogue may be defined differently. For me, narrow definitions are right. So this is institutionalized one, and I will try to show you that we are on the right path, but there is still a great deal ahead of us. And what we managed to achieve is the monitoring committees and partnership in EU funds, but, well, we still have a lot to do. And we have even more to do as regards the dialogue at the governmental level. And I must say that we had a problem with the dialogue even before 2015. And I remember that together with Kuba, who is sitting with us here, we were talking to the then authorities, to the Minister Kamysz, about creating the Council of the Civic Dialogue and the change of the concept, that is election to the Council of Public Benefit, that is the Council for the Public Benefit activity. So the structure is quite complicated because we have the Council, we have committees. We have the team. We have the National Committee for Social Economy Development. We have various bodies at the ministries. It was very complicated then, and now it has got even more complicated. The Council for Public Benefit now is at the Prime Minister's Chancellery, which in theory was to reinforce it, but in theory there was also the Committee for Public Profit and in other institutions that took over some of its competencies. So in fact, instead of simplifying, it complicated the situation. Similar was the situation in some ministries, like the Ministry of Culture, against the will of some social organizations. Some dialogue-oriented bodies were closed, and other ministries, new ones, were set up. And another important thing is it's kind of collective action, because, well, when we discuss dialogue, we say, okay, in each of the councils there are several people from the organizations that work, but it's a great challenge for the NGO sector, for the activists. If we also take into account this dialogue at the local, regional level, there is kind of army of people advising the administration. In the committee themselves, there are 500 people. At the Ministry of Labor in 2023, there were 16 bodies giving advice and other bodies involving NGOs, representatives of the other working groups at the Ministry for Civic Society. We have now over 100 people, and at the moment there are new calls for proposals for monitoring committees for particular programs. And yesterday we learned that another council of NGOs for presidency would be set up, which is a reason for joy, but on the other hand shows that it's a great challenge, that it's kind of not hundreds but thousands of working hours that the sector really does for the public administration. And they work on a voluntary basis, and we should think about it. Okay, we are now see our member of parliament is joining us. Whether such work should be now free of charge, we've been thinking about it. So it's no doubt that at least partly some such activities should be partly at least financed. There have been also good practice in some monitoring committees, lump sum amounts for the representatives of the NGOs. We have also in the Council of the Public Benefit the possibility of reimbursement costs by the employer for being present in that body. But this is not very often used. Just 2 employers made use of such a possibility. Then the question is whether it's a good mechanism. And really what we see clearly as regards the civic dialogue, we see it in the Council of the Public Benefit activity. At the beginning, we already knew that it would not act as it should, but because of the various compromises, we have a hybrid, and it's a difficult job to work with it. So first, it's because of competencies. The council was set up. It was to facilitate dialogue between the central government, local government, and NGOs. On the other hand, this advisory institution was set up to advise the minister, who is chair of the committee, which means that public officials working for the administration must agree on what to advise to the minister and the chair at the same time, which is not an easy situation. The other issue is the issue of representing the sector. The council wants to represent the sector, but for obvious reason it's not. It is elected by particular decision makers, and even as it was done very well by Madam Minister, that she gave her a place in the Council of NIVA to NGOs. Now, still the situation is such that these people are appointed by Madam Chair and not elected by organizations. And the third issue is the one of the competences, and the council was set up to deal with public benefit, and it deals with everything. We must say maliciously everything but public benefit. I was a member of the council, so I know what I'm talking about. And today the situation is such that the public benefit. Council presidency is discussed, and the Council for Presidencies being created, a partnership, and we have special committee, the right of the organization to voluntary work, and there is a special body for the period. So definitely the situation is such that the civic dialogue should be improved.
Thank you very much. The floor is yours. Good morning. I've been working for Splot, apart from my foundation. So I'm supposed to talk about civil dialogue at local level. And it seems to me that those are quite similar problems as compared to the ones that were mentioned by Piotr. I understand this dialogue as a dialogue between NGOs, but in their institutional form. I'd rather say that this dialogue does not really look good. It looks poor, really. It's exaggerated, of course, as a picture, but we may have good examples of cooperations between institutions and NGOs, but those are still exceptions. And the local authorities, they really reduce themselves only to actions and not only few of them cooperate with NGOs. So both sides don't really know how this should look like, this dialogue should look like, that it is not only complementary to some other activities, and they don't know how to use this dialogue as a tool in strategic management at local level for local authorities. That would be a source of expertise for local authorities that they would consider as an important source. As I said, that the dialogue is something which is complementary. Whenever there is an important document to consult, then NGOs are invited, consulted. If there is an element of needs diagnosis, but the dialogue for sure is not a standard tool on an everyday basis, on a daily basis that would function in this work culture. So it should be changed, because the situation is that in public policies we have different dialogue bodies, councils, for example, public benefit councils, seniors council, the youth council, the steering committee and so on. Their role is to consult, but the practice has shown that there is no idea on what should be their contribution. In fact, they are in void. In fact, they are not related to each other in a formal way, or there is no idea how to build cooperation between those bodies at local level. As I said, of course, there are some positive examples, but the practice is really rare. So what should be mentioned is that there are different dialogue systems, open consultations, consultations with NGOs, dialogue bodies, committees, councils, and so on. But also there are consultations with experts. Sometimes experts are consulted, and it's not often that those systems are used in a very intentional way. It's rather chaotic, and we don't know which voice is more important, if there is a hierarchy of voices or not in this dialogue. So we need to make it more orderly so that it serves us better, so that dialogue becomes a core tool in the functioning of local authorities. What is the potential of dialogue bodies? In the majority of cases, they have consultancy competencies. Sometimes they can take initiatives, but you may know well, because you are maybe part of those bodies, is that in practice We consult advanced projects, drafts of decisions, which means that we are in a situation where we are not able to introduce real changes, modifications, and officials on the other side have to defend their version because a lot of effort has been done. So there is a situation which is not in favor for a dialogue, but it's rather a debate related on competition, on convincing each other about their opinions, and that there is a winner and a loser, and there is no space for sitting together and talk about common interests. No, such problems as representativity in dialogue bodies, the lack of balance, it's that the organizations need to invest their own resources for this dialogue to happen, which means that it drains their own resources, and in reality there are sometimes no people available to take part in this dialogue because they have their daily, everyday work. So the consequences of such approach, because there is this enthusiasm at the beginning, of course, that there are such tools and that they are in all the provisions, but in the end we are aware that we don't know how to use them. So those local authorities, they contact us whenever they need, but they don't see any sense, any usefulness in that, and the NGOs withdraw because they are frustrated and feel they don't have any impact. So those dialogue bodies in fact lose their importance. That's what I wanted to say. Of course, it's a bit exaggerated. Before we invite our guests to react, but there are still two areas. Thank you, Piotr. Thank you, Eva. A round of applause. It was the question of having a dialogue with public authorities. Now I'd like to invite two people from NGOs about good law. Rafał Dymek from Schumann Foundation, who will discuss tax issues and tax doubts, and Tomek Pawłowski from another foundation, who will talk about red tape, which is affecting NGOs. Please stick to the time limit, which is 5 minutes for each of you. In 2020, there was such a situation, you may have heard about it. It's that some guy who had a garage gave some used tires to a foundation, and the effect was that local authorities imposed 1 million zloty sanction for this garage for not recycling used tires. So this is really striking as an example. It's sad because it's about people who want to be useful, and they were not given a small fine, but they were given really a huge fine that may ruin your lives. So within our foundations, we would analyze some mines that would have to be demined. There are two problems that we detected. First of all, it's the question of putting order into some lack of clarity as regards NGOs as taxpayers of income tax. I don't know if you are aware that income tax needs to be paid by NGOs. Of course, there are some exemptions, but the majority of provisions were set in the 90s. So the exemption is possible, for example, when someone, for example, builds a water pipe or, for example, telecommunication line, but on the other hand, organizations acting for human rights they cannot really be included in those exemptions if they need, for example, exemptions for statutory reasons, and the donation is really dedicated to a given aim. Even though they get it, they should be exempted, they pay this income tax. For example, this applies also to political parties, employers' organizations and trade unions, and they have larger exemptions. So we consider that NGOs should also benefit from this kind of larger extended exemptions. Just briefly, because it's a delicate subject, sensitive subject, there are also some doubts about the VAT tax that may also lead to some bad consequences that I mentioned before. Edwin Bendik, to sum up, he said at the beginning that we were talking about our relations with the authorities. So I would like to stress that not all those problems result from legal acts. We have among us representatives of different authorities. So legal acts, this pertain to the parliament, to some governmental representatives. But it's not about the law only, because there are some favorable interpretations for us issued by revenue offices, and they have somehow changed with the time, although the law has not changed. So we would like to have among us the representative of the third power. So defending the justice system, judicial system, and we wanted also this judicial authority to analyze thoroughly the situation that I mentioned at the beginning, not only by applying just like that the law, directly the law, but to search for justice in a given case, analyze case by case. Referring to what was said by Rafał, we wanted to look for some mines, to demine them because of the application of the law, and because of that our sector cannot function well. And this could be applied to the freedom of association, the freedom of functioning in this sector. The elements that we wanted to show here are simple things. For example, the possibility of associating, of setting up associations, and the thing is quite easy, of course. Theoretically, we've got a new law which was changed a couple of years ago, and theoretically it's a good law. This is what we expected, but it turns out that there's some practical obstacles when setting up an association. Registered courts, for example, have 7 days to register. Of course, it may take longer, but it takes too long. This is the first time. And also the case law, the jurisprudence is not unanimous in those cases. So we are not sure, as organizations who would like to register, citizens who would like to register, we are never sure of anything. This also concerns experts organizations who wanted to help them. They are not sure whether procedures which have been applied somewhere in a given region would be also applied, possible to be applied in another region. It's about registration procedure, about associations especially. And it really sometimes discourages the social tissue to do something. And for people who would like to be active, well, they can appeal to those decisions. It's easy to appeal them, even though they don't do it because they lose their faith in their fight with the administration. They feel neglected. So this is one thing. Another thing is that there are some limitations which are incidental. For example, an obstacle concerning what is contained in the association law, which appeared during the COVID pandemic. And this was supposed to simplify decision making, for example, when people don't need to meet in person, especially I'm talking about bigger organization. And this was an opening, a new solution, but the solution stays here, and at practical level it's blocking many decisions because the court says that it concerned only the pandemic, and if a given organization would like to change some regulations, then it's not possible because of court decisions who make it impossible at practical level. Another aspect that I wanted to show in the context of the lack of balance between those legal entities. One of them are sport clubs, especially functioning as associations. This is a specific sport club which is registered at the municipal level, and here we see purely technical problems. It's registered locally at the powiat level. This is one of the entities, local entity, but this register is not public, and there is no obligation of publishing entries in the register, and it's not the same when it comes to regular associations where this information is public and we can check whether those associations have been recorded there. And also copies are not given in the same way, issued in the same way by local authorities at powiat level, which means that an organization may have a copy from the register, but they are not able, though, to prove their representation, their headquarters, or, for example, the composition of the members of the board. What is not described, the migration process of those organizations to the National Court Register when they start to become companies. So sports clubs are becoming more and more often companies, and they have their own economic activities. So the lack of records about this migration has caused some really strange problems, which means, for example, that they had to close down and open another organization, set another organization, and so on, because there are no instructions, clear instructions in our legal provisions. Another thing which is also important here is that for some years we've seen a very worrying phenomenon, is that members of NGOs, boards of NGOs are considered as unemployed. They are given this status because of the interpretation of the administrative court. There was a decision issued a couple of years ago for a given organization, and it turns out that as members of the board of such an organization, they perform social work, and for them it was really not easy to get this status of an unemployed person, which means that those people were denied the access to some privileges which would be possible and accessible for unemployed. It's a problem related especially with the fact that competent institutions do not review this case by case as regards the attribution of this status, unemployed status. And there is also another exception, which is positive, is that a person which is a volunteering person based on this kind of contract may be given a status of an unemployed, whether whereas a member of the board may not be given such a status because such a person is in the board of a given organization. Those are specific problems that I wanted to show from my perspective, and that would be all. Thank you. Those specific problems are the most important ones. Thank you. And the third pillar, before we ask for comments, and the third pillar is finances, and Magdalena Pękacka from Donors Forum and another colleague will also intervene in this matter.
Słusznie.
Sure, you can applaud. And please have a look at the clocks. Yeah, we will. So I'm very happy to welcome you, and I'm very happy to be here. And I'm here as a member of the working group for law simplification, which is working at OFOP. And I'd like to show you briefly problems related to financing by public funds, and they relate to most of the organizations, and the basis for the action is the law on public benefit organizations and voluntary work. And this is to involve all these funding. And so because we have little time, so I will focus on three most important items, and then I would like to know from you what you would like to improve here. First is non-adaptation of the law to the changing reality. The law was drafted over 20 years ago. It was amended later on, but new tasks appeared, as well as the ways of implementing, like revitalization and providing social services. New areas of the activity of NGOs appeared. Development for consideration as development, and new social economy appeared. And this is not seen by this law on public benefit. And the new status of social enterprise appeared, and there are new tasks also for the public administration and organizations. We discussed it already to some extent, like just dealing with the consequences of the pandemic or war in Ukraine or climate change effects. It's not so that the law is not adapted with a view to the sphere of public benefit, because here it's very broad and new challenges are somehow included in it, but it is not adapted with regard to the tools on the basis of which these tasks could be commissioned to these organizations. So now we have mainly the open competition with a kind of a hidden option of re-granting, and we have also small grants. So the open tender is, because of many tasks, is not ineffective for many parties. Re-granting is not so known, and small grant, because of this limitation, I mean, limits, it's 10,000 for a subsidy in 90 days for implementing the task, are very limited in use. Let me also draw attention to the fact that this law on public benefit limits the possibilities of commissioning tasks in other forms, like small public tenders, because they can be used only when other possibilities are exhausted, that is, after the open competition has been used. And I mean, all authorities have not dealt with it. I mean, all mayors of cities would like to commission the task to a local organization, and this is understandable, because that's how they strengthen the capacity of the local NGOs and local economy, because these are also organizations that contribute to our local GDP. And this is not possible based on the existing law. And another group of problems is such that the procedure is provided for in the law in such a way that paradoxically we don't have here cooperation, although it's contact, but a relationship between the employer and the person accepting the tasks, because it has impact on the conditions of implementing. I hope nobody experienced that the offer is the tender selected in the competition, and the party commissioning the task says that we have just a limited amount for that, and either you do it for the money that we can give to you or not, and the organization has no way out. Either it agrees to that, or unfortunately it will not get a subsidy. The law does not provide for any possibility of negotiating such cases. I mean, the scope of implementing the task is logical, because I am given less money, so I should do less for that money. So that the second group, and unfortunately the law gives a big room for maneuver, for interpretation at different ways of giving the subsidies. And we saw how it's done, like it's done by say, principles, because there were many irregularities, and it also happens at the level of local government. So what we want here is to find a way to protect against such free interpretation of the one party to what the other party should commit itself to. And look, the law builds such a system that each zloty which is given to the organization must be related to the implementation of public tasks. And locally, it's very often so that there is just one organization that can offer something, to do something for the population there, but the village administration would help it, but we have to think about this open competition, arrange it. But it's fiction, really, because again, such a possibility should be open to support the activity of the organization for the local community, for, say, animating such people in those local communities without this open competition and ordering or commissioning a public task. Now I have a difficult task to address the problem of the lack of systemic support for funding from private sources. Well, this is a very difficult task, and it's a huge task for all of us, but I've already thought over the problem, so it would be easier for me to discuss it. And I would briefly discuss it, because we've been also talking about it with Madam Minister for a year and 6 months, and also Professor will hear it for the first time, but we've known each other for over 20 years, and he knows that I'm a person who's interested in dream big, and I'm interested in systemic changes. So our request to Madam Minister and Mr. Minister was to compile the National Strategy for the Development of Philanthropic Activity. Why? Because we think that we need such a document, such action, which should focus on 3 pillars. And it's a proposal: knowledge, because we don't have such knowledge, and it's a very broad area. We have no knowledge how much private resources we have in the sector. We have no knowledge of how to obtain such funds. Many organizations don't have fundraising competences, and I don't know if any of you wanted to recruit a fundraiser in a big city. It's a great challenge, and we need a lot of money for that. So we don't have such knowledge. There is no education system that would include it at schools, for example. So it's a very complex problem. There is no research that would show us how the situation is. That the research surveys that we did by Goose, Orplan and Javor show such estimates. But when we do some benchmarking, and there's the question about private funds in the second, then unfortunately we are unable to say it. And the other issue related to it, it's kind of promotion and engagement. In fact, we did not harness the potential of the time that we could be that we are given in the public TV, and after 30 years or so, We are in such a situation that many organizations just associate fundraising action with WOŚP, and there are more than 100,000 organizations, of which 30,000 are foundations, registered foundations. So I don't know if you know, means that we are the country with the biggest number of foundations registered in Europe. And the third issue is the tax system or the legal system that would promote and support the development of philanthropy, individual philanthropic actions. I mean, both kind of small, regular, ad hoc, and an involvement of high net worth individuals that could contribute really big money into the system, but they don't have any incentives to do so. If you look at, for example, Germany and France, who really learned such a lesson many time ago, there are many incentives for donors, and the big ones and the small ones, especially for big ones who decide to fund some capital for the foundation, are quite big, because it's really good for the state. So we've been after really difficult 7 years. Some of the organizations survived solely thanks to the public action and generosity of private and institutional donors, and that shows. And let me give the example of the foundation Ocalenie, which throughout a very short time built a system based on regular donors. They started their activity in 2022. Then 1,200 people regularly made payments, and last week we changed what happened with regular donors. So we broadly understand that notion on the portal Patronite. Half of them, that is 500,000, are those who make payments regularly. We have the issue of succession. We have the law on family foundation, which has not been addressed. I mean, in terms of philanthropic activity, we have some surveys showing that ordinary citizens, that was surveys done last year in autumn, in which Polish people indicated that the easiest and most desired form of public activity is an online payment. And well, the last thing, because I'm running out of time, we now that taxation rules have not changed for many years, for over 20 years. Nothing was done within the last 10 years. The government of Law and Justice, that is Peace Party, many times announced that there would be some incentives for philanthropic work, but it did not happen. And the last thing that had impact on the fact that we somehow stimulated is the small philanthropy, and in consequence some organizations dealing with kind of not really undesired topics, I mean undesired from the view of the authorities within the last 8 years, but they survived because there was amendment of the law on public collections of money and releasing them from internet payments, from the rigor of the minister's permission, because it's hard to imagine that the Minister of the Interior should give permission for the action of organizations that help at the Polish-Belarusian border. And the question to you is whether and how you intend to support such efforts. And I would use a phrase used very often by Cuba, so that the so-called diet of sector would be more sustainable and healthy, so that private funds could be more important. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, indeed. It's a signal that now questions to the guests representing the words of authority start. So please stay with us, I mean those from the sector, because in a moment you will have a privilege to refer to what we will hear in a moment. So first we will invite the Minister for Civic Society, Mr. Marek Krawczyk, to take the floor. So Minister, could you please somehow comment or refer to what has been said in 5 minutes, let's say. That's what I'm saying. I'd like to say that some people talked for more than 5 minutes. Of course, we may establish the council. Thank you so much. I'd like to go back to the issue of the agreement that was signed in September last year. I wanted just to say that the ruling coalition, we seriously treat those decisions. So on behalf of the third way that was signed by Michał Koboszko, who is not a member of the Polish Parliament. So let me just in a few words to make a position on what we managed to achieve within the last weeks and months on these three areas. So first, many kind of bitter words were expressed as regards various mechanisms of the civic dialogue, suggesting that there are so many of them. And sometimes the areas overlap. And I'd like also to mention that some of these mechanisms are those provided for in the law, for example, on the public benefit or on the Freedom Institute. So these bodies do exist and they will operate, but I'd like to say about something that I'm proud of as regards mechanisms, the fact that 3 teams were established in the Chancellery of the Prime Minister. So here in this conference room I see many people who will work in this team, and some of them already work because the teams started their work. So there are 3 teams, one to work on legal simplifications, and indeed the team will have great responsibility, and we associate great hopes with it, because as the gentleman has just said, I mean, the representative of the NGO, there is a great deal to be done, and there are really high expectations in the context of the law on public benefit and voluntary work. And there is also a team on voluntary work and activism, and a team on participation and civic dialogue. So, ladies and gentlemen, we do hope that you will work in these teams. We will only support them. I mean, we do hope that the work will bring good effects. But I'd like to also indicate that a great achievement of ours, especially in the context of the previous years, are those related to the procedure of the elections in the National Freedom Institute. I mean here the council of that institute, and the procedure of appointing a director of the National Freedom Institute. We did it while trying to take into account your voices, that is NGO voices, and we are trying to implement a transparent process in which the competences, experience and knowledge of the sector is taken into account. And indeed, in the Council of the National Freedom Institute, for the first time we see more representatives on NGOs, and these representatives have a majority there. So it is really an exceptional situation, and I'm very happy with it. As for appointment of the director for the National Freedom Institute, which gave rise to many emotions, so, well, there were a dozen or more candidates for that position. They went through the competence test, which was very difficult. And I encourage you to read about the competition, so all the documents, this test of knowledge, plus other more specific information at the hearing of candidates who reach the last stage are available. So you may have a look at it and see yourselves whether the process was transparent. In my opinion, it was fully transparent, and I must tell you that we managed to find really excellent candidates, 4 candidates. And finally, Michał Braun was appointed director, and he is here with us in this conference room. And for several weeks now, he's been running the National Freedom Institute, and he will do that for the whole term of office. But other people, the 4 of them, really had fantastic results. And now let me use that opportunity to tell you, because we have such fantastic public here, the Director Brown approached the Minister for Civic Society with a request that Vice Director of the Institute should be Adela Gąsiorowska. Please stand up. Okay, you are with us here. Thank you. I'd like to congratulate Adela Gąsiorowska, and I'd like to say that I signed this document of appointing Adela Gąsiorowska, who, as from the beginning of August, we start working for the National Freedom Institute, and she really had a great result in the recruitment process. She did not become the director, but the director really decided she would be necessary to work for and represent NGOs. So I'm very happy with it, and congratulations. So indeed, there are several such mechanisms. We have also the Dialogue Council that also was discussed here, and yesterday the recruitment for the Presidency Council was announced. So we might say that there is kind of multiplication of all these bodies, and maybe they are not always necessary. Although presidency is an exceptional event, so I also encourage you to make your submissions. On the website of the National Freedom Institute, you will find all the relevant information, and you can get actively involved in our work involving planning presidency. So I do hope you will do that. So this is the area of mechanisms. So now briefly I'd like to say a few words about simplification of the activity of associations and foundations. I'd like to inform you that next week we will launch consultations related to the regulation on the model of the report of the public benefit organization, and you know it very well. You know that this offer and the report are not so consistent. That's why we first carried out pre-consultations. We prepared the proposal of such document, and next week the document will be announced, and we will ask for your observations, for your comments, so that all of you who may really refer to the document, may make some comments. We would like to finalize it in the coming months, so we do care about the process and want to finalize it so that we could use the documents in next month, and that could be used in the next competitions and public tasks. So I encourage you to send to us your opinions. I know that the holidays start soon, but the community of yours expects changes, and we would also like to do a lot here, and to simplify things which are possible to be simplified immediately as for financing NGOs and supporting philanthropic work. This is the third area that is laid down in this agreement signed in September. So what we really did in the National Freedom Institute, as you know, I mean, all experts who in the past assessed or applications in the National Freedom Institute stopped working for this institute, and we would have now recruitment of new people for that. So people who would like to do that, please make your submissions to the National Freedom Institute, and you would assess the following applications.
I can admit that funds which would be sent to some friends of some friends because they were friends of the people in power. This is no longer the case. What it really counts is experts, independent opinion, and the participation in a call for proposals. So funds for NGOs, I do hope, will never be given because of some political reasons, and I do hope, and I'm convinced that that all the new calls for projects will be independent and will contribute to financing well thought over and good projects for NGOs. So just one word, because there was a question about the law on public benefit. There is my personal involvement, but also Minister Agnieszka Buczyńska was involved, and the whole team was involved in this initiative. I know that because I'm in touch with the Director Braun, and our great ambition is to prepare a great amendment of an extended amendment of those provisions. We are aware of the fact that it's a lengthy process. It will be hard because expectations are huge. So I'm counting on the dedicated task force within the Chancellery of the Prime Minister. I do hope that they will act quickly. I'm aware that this kind of amendment will last months, and I think 2026 in reality this is a realistic deadline for the implementation of this new law, amended law. Maybe something which is food for thought is, for example, whether this law could be amended in the meantime just a bit to add some things that would allow us to function better, because without those things we couldn't function. Maybe some tiny changes could be introduced, but I do hope that in 2 years' time all the necessary amendments that respond to our needs and our realities will be implemented, but only after consulting organizations and local authorities, which are the ones who are the sponsors there. So 2026 is the deadline for those important amendments that I do hope we will prepare together with you. Thank you, Minister. It was full of information, comments. This will be later, but first of all, I would like to give the floor to our MP, who knows everything very well because she used to work in an NGOs and now she's the head of a parliamentary committee. So how does the Parliament help here? So I'm not a deputy head of this committee, but the secretary of this committee. We wanted this committee to have two women. Magdalena Biejat, who is the Vice Marshal of the Senate, and another person who's also the Vice Marshal. And I'm only a secretary here. So please make accountable those two heads for their activities. I remember from my previous activity, yes, that we keep talking about the same things all the time. There is a certain philosophy of the functioning of the state. In fact, after my first experience at the regional level, I was head of a public benefit council there at regional level, and I know that councils are to give some advice, and other bodies are to act. So let's see what is the communication which is the result of that, and to what extent such communication gives results and is really implemented or reflected in the legal system, or just those dialogue entities are only some entities which do not play an important role. There is no real effect of their activity. So in fact, not many things will change here, because some people are frustrated. They're frustrated of this kind of philosophy of our state. This is how things are. And another question which is seen more and more often is the representativity and the common interest. As the minister said, we will do so as everyone is satisfied. There is no such option, because all the mechanisms that we could see, that are here for years, those are mechanisms that ensure that there is no common position by all the NGOs, because I'm talking here about both perspectives, vertical and horizontal perspective, and in this aspect all the NGOs are really divided, because they work according to different legal systems, starting from small associations, foundations, which are based on two different laws, one old law and a new law, a law that was supposed to unify everything, and another law which role was to ensure some specific things to some specific foundations. So within this group, I've been head of an association for 25 years, and in fact we will never come to terms, and the government has done everything so that there is no common interest among NGOs, because the authorities, they have their own interest. Whether we are talking about central authorities or local authorities, it doesn't matter really, because they want to show themselves only in the pre-electoral period on pictures with some NGOs. That's all. And the financing system for NGOs is something that can be circumvented. We could see that because you said, for example, yes, let's not talk about the diagnosis of those organizations, but what are the solutions on your side? What can you do as an MP? What can I do? Well, I wondered who would be the first to intervene, whether it would be the minister or an MP. It's a basic question, because one of the hot topics is now partnership relations. So whether it's possible to be done or not, because we have different laws that regulate the functioning of this civil society. Should we do it as a coalition project, or should we search for a majority elsewhere? So We would like to have a declaration from the minister. So there will be a huge amendment for 2026, as you said, of course, but the question is what the new government will do with this huge amendment. So there's this lack of certainty because we may think that it would be done during the previous mandate, which means that specific effects will not be seen when it comes to the functioning of our organizations. We could see it in every ministry that some financing was available only to some chosen groups. So everything can be circumvented in our system. You are asking me what can I do as an MP. Within the coalition, we will raise our hands, will be for all the projects which will be presented and drafts that will be presented by Minister Buczyńska because they will be consulted by the government. So we know that the whole coalition will vote for those governmental projects. But if there will be some situations where drafts will not go through the government, well, yes, it's already been done by the previous governing coalition, and it had very negative reactions. So, but I see a good side to it because I know that people want to circumvent some rules. There may be some drafts at the initiative of MPs drafts. So if there is a specific change, for example, an amendment of an article about the income tax, another article needs to be changed in a law, in a given law, that will be a facilitation for someone. So going through governmental consultations, it lasts 1 year. So through an MP project or draft, we can do it within a couple of months, and we will see. I introduced such a draft, and we will see in how many months it will be accepted. So there is an openness for this kind of MPs drafts. I asked my committee, I said, you want such tiny changes, just introduce and present your MP drafts, your own drafts. Now, Professor Marek Rymsza, advisor of the Polish president. What's your comment? I would like to refer to those 3 rounds of questions. As regards the first one, more general, and the 2 other ones, I will talk about it more in detail. As regards the civil project, yes, we have a huge deficit of this kind of initiatives. But I wouldn't agree really with Piotr, because I see not the need of promoting technical mechanisms of social dialogue, but we should be aware of the fact that those mechanisms can be efficient only if they are in culture, they function in a culture of dialogue. If there is the culture is missing, so there will be no efficient tools. And the basis for that is deep polarization. Because of this polarization, it's really hard to have a good dialogue. So what is the problem here? Why do we have this destructive power of polarization which affects our world, social world? It's the capacity of taming every conflict and introducing this polarization into every conflict, and there is no chance of having a common position because those 2 worlds stop communicating with each other. So the MP said that organizations were divided. I'd say that they are different one from another, but it doesn't mean that they are divided. The civil society shouldn't get into this logic of being divided. I'm a scientist, active scientist. Max Weber, to remind you when he debated with Marx, he would say that the strength of a democratic system would be that there is no conflict of interest, but they just don't go one way, but they go different ways, and they this is the main thing here, is that if there are differences, there is still a dialogue. In one matter we may have different opinions, but in other matters we can have similar opinions, so it's good to keep communicating though. And weakness of this social dialogue, moving to mechanisms, is that if one side is chosen by the other side, because this is the mechanism, there is no partnership logic. So it would be good that one side chooses herself, and this dialogue should first take place internally in this social civil society. This is where it should start, and then it will go in a good way, and then people will see that they have their own representatives, that this is how it works, that there is this representativity. And if, for example, this doesn't exist, well, there is a probability which is quite high that some dialogue mechanism will be good only for those who have already been in this discourse, and for the other ones they will be not included to this discourse. As regards the second round of questions regarding what should be done in our law and legal system, so we are talking about red tape and simplifications. So I think that the main thought should be here thinking about reducing the costs of the functioning of our organization. Red tape, over-regulation, this is not good, because having a company, an economic activity, so the income is higher than the cost, and there is a surplus which is subject to taxation. And for NGOs, there is no surplus, so that's why the costs of the functioning of such organization should be as low as possible, and this is the good way to go. Another advantage here would be that this organization, that this should apply to all kinds of organizations. It's not like a call for proposals. It's applied to all organizations which are also company at the same time. Now, the financial dimension. I think that what is missing is a mechanism that would be to a great extent based on cooperation, not on competition, because if someone is acting in cooperation with administration, he or she knows where the funding can come from. It can come also from public administration. I've been working in promoting the Center for Social Services as local coordinators of social services. Those people, they tell me at local level, they tell me that they don't like this logic because they want to create a really strong local system, solid local system for local entities. They should be local and non-profit organizations. So the logic that someone wins, someone loses, means that someone is in the system or not. And the system should be varied and should respond to different needs, and should make available those services at local level to everyone. This is the huge challenge here, and how to deal with it, I don't know exactly, but I know that there is such a need. And the last thing regarding what was said before, I agree that the strategy for philanthropy development is really needed. Your example shows it very well, because what was this family foundation about is that the succession within a family could be kept and they could inherit from one another, but the word foundation is applied to that, and other people would say, don't use this word because in this case it shouldn't apply, yes? And unfortunately it didn't work. The ones who were interested in that, they liked this word. There was huge pressure, yes, at that time, and we should have more such activities. We should promote this kind of philanthropy as it's understood by the donors forum. Another question, yes, another question, because there's some specific details given, whether it's governmental draft or an MP draft, but in the end it's up to the president to sign such a draft. What do you think? Will the president sign? I'm not deciding, and I'm an expert only, so I cannot tell you now whether it would be signed or not. I need to have an approval for that. But what is the environment? What is the atmosphere around this subject about modernizing, about amending the law on public benefit? What is the climate, the overall climate? I don't know. I am only trying to answer your questions according to my personal opinions. I would need to think it over. I don't know. I cannot reply. Really clear. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We are a little bit behind the schedule. We are also aware that the same is in session now, and you will have to leave us. So, Tomek, maybe could you sum it up? Could you sum our panel just in 1 minute, if you may? Well, ladies and gentlemen, Carolina mentioned the road map. So the request from the road map at the end of 2015 and 16 were presented by us. Myself, I did it. I presented it to the parliament, to the government, and to the chancellor of the president, and nobody really took that into account. That's one first conclusion. I hope it won't happen again. But the second issue, a lot is up to us. We must be active. We must really be active here. The minister mentioned mechanisms, and I do believe that under this mechanism, proposals will be worked out. The question is whether it will be enough for them to be translated into specific solutions, and I have some fears, but we must really exert pressure. And the last thing, we must facilitate things. Let me remind you that in the parliament there are some draft solutions for CIT tax, a ready solution for the system of the rapid registration of foundations, etc., etc. And we are getting back to funding, and the group comprising representatives of organizations of local governments worked out some amendment for the law as regards financing mechanisms. I'd like to inform that it is available at ngo.pl website, so you can follow it. So please visit ngo.pl in general, not only for that issue, so that you have no problem finding it. I have just 3 copies here, and I will hand them out in a moment. And maybe, Minister, it's kind of ready material for very fast amendment of the law. And if it won't be the governmental law, it would be parliament members' initiative. Okay, so we are 10 minutes behind schedule. We must end, and I suggest that that the discussion should be held later on. And well, you can also, of course, discuss these proposals of the representative of the authorities on the margins of the conference. So do it on the margins of the conference, and we with Carolina have already summed up the panel, or Carolina will say something. So thank you so much for this panel. And civic proposals for Poland, as mentioned by Carolina at the beginning, will be discussed, and their implementation will be discussed at last panel in this conference room at 5 p.m. But before we have a lunch break, let's first take a group photo. It would be a logistical challenge, but let's try to do it. The picture would be over there where our photographer, lady photographer, is waving her hand. So we must go to that corner, and Konrad, wearing a blue shirt, is also waving his hands, and there are lots of us, but that's why this is the best place to take such a fantastic photo. Thank you so much. And so please go there, and after the picture, please have lunch, and then we will have
Witam ponownie. Przerwa po drugiej plenarnej sesji OFIP-u. Rafał Kowalski z NGO.pl. Jest ze mną dwóch panów Marków mamy. Marek Krawczyk, minister, i Marek Rymsza z Kancelarii Prezydenta. Sesja była z udziałem polityków. Zaprosiliśmy tu polityków, żeby troszeczkę ich przepytać w temacie tej sesji. Panowie, mam takie pytanie do was obu, takie same. Tak na was patrzę, sesja była trochę skonstruowana na zasadzie ściany płaczu, dowiadaliście się o wielu problemach, ale podejrzewam, że wiele z tych problemów żeście już wcześniej usłyszeli. Jak patrzę na Marka Rymszę, to wiem, że po prostu zęby zjadł na takich problemach. Ale może jednak mimo wszystko coś na tej sesji do was dotarło, że jest nowym problemem, albo że jest starym, ale nagle tak w głowie wam zaświtało, że coś nowego w ramach tego problemu się pojawiło, jakieś nowe przemyślenia ta sesja w was wzbudziła, których wcześniej żeście nie mieli. Ja jestem słaby w etykiecie, nie wiem od kogo zacząć, ale chyba od pana ministra. Dobrze.
Dziękuję bardzo. Ja chciałem powiedzieć, że tutaj rzeczywiście padało przede wszystkim bardzo dużo oczekiwań. Znaczy to pokazuje, że środowisko organizacji pozarządowych ma świadomość, że przepisy, całe otoczenie i całe regulacje wymagają zmian. Także jest duże oczekiwanie, ale też bardzo dużo pomysłów, bo w ostatnich latach organizacje pozarządowe nie zasypywały gruszek w popiele. Pracowały, przygotowały propozycje, no a teraz naszą rolą jako polityków jest te propozycje zebrać, podsumować, przedstawić i tak jak mówiłem o tym w panelu, chciałbym, żeby w 2026 roku ustawa o pożytku publicznym i wolontariacie uległa zmianie, uległa dopasowaniu do dzisiejszych realiów i żeby organizacje pozarządowe mogły się dalej dynamicznie na podstawie właśnie nowych, aktualnych przepisów rozwijać.
Do tego pan był przygotowany, a ja pytałem o coś, co może pana zaskoczyło, ale już nie będę odpytywał drugi raz, tylko mówię o tym po to, żeby przypomnieć Markowi Rymszy, że taka była intencja mojego pytania.
To znaczy tak, a ja akurat do tego nie byłem przygotowany, natomiast wydaje mi się, że rzeczywiście ta 2003 rok to jest jednak inna sytuacja brzegowa dotycząca tej relacji między władzą publiczną a organizacjami obywatelskimi. I warto po takiej liczbie lat, po takiej już ponad 20 przemyśleć i mnie się wydaje, że to jest rozsądne, tak jak myślenie w tych kategoriach małej i dużej nowelizacji. Znaczy małej, która po prostu usprawnia rzeczy, które są rozpoznane, a tej większej, która wymaga jednak pewnego, no nie tylko namysłu, ale no pewnego też takiego wspólnego myślenia tak horyzontalnie. Tak? Więc wydaje mi się, że to jest dobry kierunek. Ja się dzisiaj umocniłem, jeśli tak mogę powiedzieć, w tym, co cały czas mi chodzi po głowie, że wtedy, te 20 lat temu, to jednak było myślenie wtedy Polska była Polską sektorową, resortowo-sektorową. Ona tak była skonstruowana i wobec tego myślenie, żeby się odnalazły te organizacje, no to było myślenie w kategoriach stworzyć jeszcze też taki sektor, który też tam istnieje wśród tych innych, tak? I że to jest passé. Bo po prostu my mamy dzisiaj tą świadomość, że raczej właśnie, co wysiąsłem dzisiaj z sesji, że to znajduje zrozumienie. To jest, że organizacje nie tyle stworzą jakiś wydzielony sektor, tylko są po prostu wśród ludzi. Działają dla ludzi, z ludźmi i wśród ludzi, a wobec tego one są umocowane lokalne i one współtworzą pewną lokalną infrastrukturę, która żyje dla mieszkańców w szerokim rozumieniu i jest w stanie funkcjonować. I o to chodzi, żeby tak to skroić, żeby tak to mogło działać, tak? I dlatego potrzebne są w jakiś sposób stabilizujące relacje, które no nie znoszą elementu konkurencji, bo tam, gdzie jest, można powiedzieć, nierównowaga popytu i podaży, czyli są jakieś środki do zagospodarowania, a jest większa możliwość wydania, no to musi być jakiś mechanizm selekcyjny, ale jednak, że nie on stanowi o kulturze całości, tylko że jest więcej miejsca na taką ustabilizowaną współpracę. I mi się wydaje, że to jest właściwie kierunek.
Bardzo dziękuję. Wy, panowie, w swoich wystąpieniach sporo mówiliście o dialogu. Może to dlatego, że ten dialog rozpoczynał prezentację organizacji. Tam był Piotr Frączak, który został wam pewnie w głowach. Chciałbym troszkę właśnie przejść do tego tematu i zastanawiałem się dla Marka Rymszy nad pytaniem, jaką rolę Kancelaria Prezydenta mogłaby systemowo w dialogu mieć, ale sobie tak przypomniałem, ale właściwie tak, ma swojego przedstawiciela w Radzie NIW, ma swojego przedstawiciela prezydent w Komitecie Pożytku Publicznego. Już w jakiś sposób ta systemowa rola jest spełniana. Ale może to jest za mało, a może to jest w ogóle zły kierunek. Pytam ciebie teraz...
Akurat tutaj, znaczy, warto zwrócić uwagę, że mieliśmy taką ileś już lat temu, ale był taki kryzys związany, no można powiedzieć, z załamaniem się tej logiki dialogu trójstronnego w tym dialogu społecznym, czyli partnerów społecznych. Czyli no, tam chodziło o to między innymi, że w tym dialogu trójstronnym po prostu rząd pełni rolę katalizatora porozumienia dwóch stron stosunków pracy. I jeśli rząd przyjmie, wejdzie w buty któregoś z partnerów, to jest koniec tego dialogu, bo ten drugi czuje się poszkodowany i nie chce dialogować. No ta komisja trójstronna w pewien sposób się zapadła. Tam no, ona była martwa. I została wymyślona Rada Dialogu Społecznego jako pewna formuła nowego otwarcia. No i akurat jest tak, że tym takim patronem tego RDS-u jest właśnie pan prezydent jako głowa państwa. I to ma swoje pozytywne znaczenie. To mogę powiedzieć, że rzeczywiście to, że w pewnych sytuacjach może się właśnie spotkać na terenie kancelarii, czy to ma swoje pozytywny wpływ na bieg całości, więc akurat pomyślenie, że można byłoby tworzyć jakiś mechanizm dialogu obywatelskiego, w którym można byłoby zastosować podobne rozwiązanie, że głowa państwa no nie bezpośrednio zarządza, ale jest jednak jakimś patronem, jest do przemyślenia. Tylko że problem polega na tym, to co ja mówiłem dzisiaj, że warunkiem brzegowym szansy na dialog obywatelski, żeby on nie stał się martwym mechanizmem, no to jest jednak po prostu wychodzenie z tej takiej kultury polaryzacyjnej głębokiego podziału, bo wtedy po prostu nie ma przestrzeni do dialogu. Tutaj najpierw jest potrzebna pewna kultura, i wtedy mechanizm może działać. Ale czy on jest potrzebny? Oczywiście, że jest.
O Radzie Dialogu Obywatelskiego, projekcie, postulacie będziemy jeszcze mówili na kolejnej sesji, która będzie transmitowana, więc zapraszam. Może tam się pojawi ten postulat albo będzie wsparty, który przed chwilą Marek Rymsza zgłosił. Teraz jest przerwa lunchowa, więc mamy trochę więcej czasu, więc pozwolę sobie zadać, ale mimo wszystko to będzie...
Ten, kto miał być patronem, nie może w żaden sposób jakby domagać się takiego rozwiązania. Znaczy, bo to musiało być tak, że te strony chcą, żeby takie coś na górze było. I to taka musi być zachowana kolejność, nigdy odwrotna, bo wtedy to jest brane jako jakiś rodzaj wpływu, a tu nie o to chodzi. Tu chodzi raczej o zwiększenie prawdopodobieństwa takiego właśnie agregacji pewnych ustaleń, uzgodnień itd.
Dobrze, tak jak powiedziałem, to jest przerwa lunchowa, więc możemy rozmawiać troszeczkę dłużej, ale mimo wszystko to będzie już ostatnie pytanie. To będzie pytanie do Marka Garawczyka. Pan dużo mówił o zespołach, które powstały w departamencie. Ja też jestem członkiem jednego z takich zespołów i mam wrażenie, że troszkę została tam stworzona taka przestrzeń, że organizacje się spotkają, organizacje porozmawiają, organizacje coś wypracują i przekażą dalej, przekażą administracji, przekażą rządowi. Może to jest mylne wrażenie, ale chciałbym spytać, jak pan uważa, że to powinno być? Czy to nie powinno na przykład być tak, że organizacje się spotykają nie między sobą, ale ze sobą i z administracją, z departamentem, z przedstawicielami rządu i to bezpośrednio z nimi wypracowują pewne rozwiązania, a nie sami, a potem dalej je gdzieś wysyłają?
Ja chciałem powiedzieć, że zespoły są na początku swojej pracy. I absolutnie naszą intencją jest stworzenie miejsc właśnie dialogu do przedstawienia oczekiwań, propozycji organizacji pozarządowych, ale jak najbardziej chcemy w to włączyć czy przedstawicieli Departamentu Społeczeństwa Obywatelskiego w Kancelarii Prezesa Rady Ministrów, czy chociażby właśnie przedstawicieli pana prezydenta, czy też innych środowisk, ale przede wszystkim też innych ministerstw i innych